Okay, welcome everyone to our August monthly Zoom meeting. Tonight we have a packed agenda, so I'm going to get us started and moving along, hopefully here. Okay, here is somewhat our agenda, but maybe not completely the agenda, so I'm going to keep you guessing. Before we get too far this evening, I just wanted to take a moment and a moment of silence in recognition of Alex Plum. You'll see here, Alex was NSO's 2023 Adult Male Referee of the Year. Unfortunately, over the last weekend, he's passed away. I just thought I would leave some comments that his wife, Noreen, shared with Taylor over the weekend. This is a huge loss for our referee community, and we'll just take a moment of silence. And as Alex would want it, he'd want us to get off to our meeting and in a happier place. So I just want to start this evening by thanking everyone who's been out there on the pitch these last few months for all of our tournaments. I know it's been a taxing time. NSO's had several tournaments all on the same weekend. And so I know many have been either doing lots of game at one tournament or maybe making it to two. Tonight, what we hope to do is provide you and kind of refocus us back into the fall season. Your 30-minute halves games go by the wayside unless you're doing our mod games, and it's back to full-length games. So with that, let's start off with, I know that we've got some people on the webinar tonight that is new. So we're going to just do a little bit of orientating people to the website. First, just want to make sure everybody knows where the inquiry screen is. That's where you can find out where your available games are that you can pick up. When you complete your match, if you go into and log back in, you'll see your match reports that you need to complete. And if you just click on the link there, that will get you to the match report. So that way you can complete that and we can get you paid. If you have a misconduct, you will find that misconduct tab over here on the left. That way you can hit the prompt, type in the match number, and then be able to complete your report. Another great useful tab is the information tab. Some of the items that we'll cover tonight, you're going to be able to go back and look at when you under the documents link there, and be able to get to some of the league rules that we have that you'll need to reference if you're officiating for those leagues. And then lastly, when you do log into the website, what's new, we always try to provide information here in regards to upcoming events and opportunities. So that's another great resource that is available to you. With that, I'll just pause and see if anybody had any burning questions in regards to the Ridgestar website and or any problems that they've had that they'd like to use this opportunity to ask. Okay, if not, we'll keep moving along. We've got the Arbiter website for those of you that are doing high school games. It's important that one, you get in and get your high school training done. It's probably going to take about 60 to 90 minutes. Um, but once you have that done, you're then able to get into the schedule and see any of the upcoming games that you can assign to by clicking on the self-assign tab there. And then based on NSO, I can do a search and it's going to bring up my games that are available that fit into my schedule that I haven't created blocks for. We do encourage you that if you do have blocks that you need to create because of work or personal commitments, you can find that under the blocks tab there. And then by using these functions over here, you can have full days in which you block out, or you can have partial days that you block out. So that way, when assigners are looking to put you on games, they'll know that you may not be available. If you turn back games, this also creates blocks for you. And then sometimes we will reach out to people in desperation when we need to get officials on games if it looks like you may have created a block and maybe things have changed. Once you do complete your game, you're going to want to come back in to the website and underneath the schedule tab, you'll be able to find your games. As you can see, I don't have any reports here to complete at this moment in time. I usually try to keep my filter applied to monthly. Because by monthly, I usually, by the time I get into the website, the game may have disappeared. But then I would just click on this note. As you can see, it says view report. And if you click on that, you're able to go in and put in the score and then save it. It's important that when you do your high school games, that you get that report filled out the night of the game. So that way the crew gets the full match fee. When we don't get the report filled out until after the day of the match, there is a slight percentage taken off of the match fee. While we're in Arbiter, does anybody have any questions in regards to the software there? Okay, we'll jump back into our presentation. So we're going to talk about several different leagues tonight because all the different leagues seem to need to have their own set of rules. And I think as we go through this, you'll see that many of the concepts do apply to several of the leagues that we do officiate for. So I tried to get polls set up tonight, but I ran into a snag because of the last meeting. But can anybody tell me, either through chat or answering, is it true that all leagues have to have a laminated player card? Did I lose everybody? Oh, we got chat going. Okay, answer is no, that is correct. Some leagues will have it and other leagues will not. And maybe tonight we'll try to get you the secret recipe of what is needed and what's not. So Washington Youth Soccer is going to be pushing on digital player cards this year. So you'll get those usually from the manager's cell phone. But also a lot of their rosters are going to have pictures on them as well. If you have the pictures and can actually see the faces off of the roster, that is one way to be able to check in the teams. But otherwise, you'll probably need those digital cards to be able to see if the players actually the ones that's on the roster. It's really important that you get some type of paper roster on the games that you won't be filling out your match reports electronically. That way you have that roster. So if you have any misconducts during your match, you're able to walk away with that and be able to complete your misconduct reports on the website. Washington Premier League is also working on doing digital player cards this year. They may also have, or instead have, laminated cards. They do allow handwritten players in on the club roster. And so you just need to be cognizant of the antics that may get played with coaches. I've always found a good rule of thumb here is to if the player does if the coach does add a handwritten name into it, just let the opposing coach know that has been done. And if they're in disagreement on that, they can always go and protest that with the league afterwards. And I would tell you that's a good rule of thumb to use on any of our leagues. I think Craig's got his hand raised in regards to maybe Washington Premier League.
Yeah, so just in addition to the handwritten additions on the roster, they do require you to. So the club will also present a club roster, so not a game day roster, and then they just want to make sure that that player is listed on the club roster, even though they had to write them in on that game day sheet for that day. And then like Richard said, the opposing coach you just need to share that information with them. That way, there's just transparency of their roster wasn't updated at the time of game time. Thank
Okay,
you.
Yep, thank you, Craig. Any questions on rosters so far here? So KD, I see in the chat, you asked about if they have handwritten player cards on the match roster. Do we need to verify that they have a player's card? And the answer to that would be yes.
Thank you.
Again, I think this is unfortunately sometimes the hardest part of our job is just to get players checked in. I think what's important for everybody to remember is that our goal is to be able to get a game played with whether or not we have cards, rosters, etc. I've often had to ask coaches to handwrite their rosters out because the printer wasn't working at home. But I just want to make sure I walk away with a roster. And then if the opponents aren't happy with the paperwork in regards to that was submitted to be able to check players in, they always have the right to go back to the league and file a protest. So let's make sure that we're getting games played. If you have issues, you can always reach out to your assigner and they can help you as long as they're not also trying to get officiate a game. And then the leagues can always work out on the other end about whether or not the players were legal, not legal, etc. And then that way they can determine who the winner is, even though that may not be the same as what we had on the field. Okay, next, talk a little bit about mod soccer. Kind of the ages that we have here is under U8. A lot of those games you won't find on the NSO website, but there are a few. I know that RCL is wanting to use officials on the U8 games more and actually had State Cup games for them this last year. We have U9 through U11, U12. Some of the rule modifications that we have to contend with and remember as officials is the no punting or drop kicking, heading, the build out line, and then where do we call it for offside. So we will hit on that through this chart. Again, there's no heading allowed under U12 and below for Washington U Soccer, as well as punting or drop kicking the ball. There is a build out line but we use the midfield line to determine whether or not the player is offside. When U8 for RCL plays, they actually do follow the same U9 through U12 rules as well. But when you get into some of the smaller clubs or the in-house leagues, they usually have no offsides and really just have league rules that apply. Any questions on the Washington Youth Soccer mod rule?
Hey, Richard, one question. Every once in a while I hear, usually at the tournaments, a team will say, you know, especially on the mod, there's no slide tackling in our league. Do we have any leagues where there's no slide tackling in the mod rules?
So great, Kevin. Great question, Kevin, because I was going to hit on that next. So Washington, so as far as I know, RCL, WPL, and most of the rec leagues through Washington Youth Soccer do allow slide tackling from U9 up. There may be what I kind of call the in-house leagues where you may have, I don't know, I'll just use an example of Pac Northwest. If they had an in-house league of U9 teams that just played each other, they may decide not to have slide tackling. So you usually find that maybe in the rec leagues, the in-house rec leagues. And usually if both coaches say, yeah, we don't do slide tackling, then as an official, I recommend calling any slide tackling because both coaches are saying that's the way it is. But for RCL and WPL, there is slide tackling from U9 and up.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on mod rules for Washington Youth Soccer? Okay, we'll get into the WPL mod soccer rules. So U8 through U10, there is the build out line. Offside line will be used there, is where offside will get called. Again, goalkeepers, there's no punting or drop kicking the ball and no intentional heading. What is the restart for a player who intentionally heads the ball? An indirect free kick. Perfect. So with WPL, we actually don't have build out lines at U11 and U12. So there's no restrictions there. U11 still has the no intentional heading, but U12 does allow heading in WPL. Anyone have any questions in regards to WPL mod soccer rule modifications?
Richard, last year I had a coach who said it was a U12 match where heading is allowed, but they had a U10, U11 player play up, and a coach said he's not allowed to head an opponent. How do we keep track of who? Oh, first of all, is that statement true? And if so, how do we keep track of who's 10 years old and who's 9 years old on a U12 match?
You hit exactly on why Washington Youth Soccer went to not allowing heading from U12 and below, because they have so many players that play up. It is really not our responsibility to keep track of who's what age out on the pitch. And I think it's perfectly acceptable for you to tell the coach that that's great. Thanks for letting me know. I'm sure that your player knows and that the player will not be heading the ball in the game today. But according to the rules that we are officiating, with it being a U12 game, we're going to, allow the intentional heading of the ball. Does that help, KD?
It does. It answers it clearly. Thank you.
Okay. I know we have a couple hands raised. Duncan, I'll let you go first.
Richard, are there any restrictions on penalty kicks in either WYS or WPL mod soccer?
And by penalty kicks, meaning calling a penalty kick in the penalty area?
Correct.
Yes, there is no penalty kick restrictions in WPL or Washington Youth Soccer that I am aware of or saw in their league rules.
So normal penalty kick decisions.
Yep. Who can tell me at what distance the penalty mark is for a mod game on a mod site's field? Ten yards, perfect. Okay, Richard, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, build out line is used only on goalkeeper possession and goal kicks. No other fouls or offside calls or anything else.
So for Washington Youth Soccer, you are correct. It's used to make sure that the attacking team is getting behind the build out line before applying pressure to the defense as the ball's being played out of the back. But for U8 through U10 in WPL, you do call offside at the build out line.
But they don't have to retreat behind the build out line for that indirect free kick.
I would say that anytime that you have a ball that's in the defensive third of the field, even an indirect free kick, that the opponents have to retreat out past the build out line. Okay, any other questions? Okay, air quality index. Luckily so far this year, and maybe with all the rain we've had over the last week, maybe we won't have to deal with air quality. But here's kind of the index in regards to when we will be playing and or postponing games. This last year, we've also been able to utilize the cold index as well as the heat index for some of our games. So unfortunately, weather is becoming more prominent in our matches and decisions in regards to when we'll play. Your assigner is always a good resource to be able to assist you if you have questions or issues there. So next, Northwest Soccer Officials now has 3 clubs that have Elite Academy games. The Elite Academy has several rules that we need to go through tonight. And as we do that, we'll try to also relate it to the other leagues that we assign for. So the Elite Academy, we will be assigning those games on RidgeStar, and I'm sure many of you saw the games starting to pop up on the website. And the assigner will then put you on those games in something called assigner.com. And that system will then send you, from my understanding, an email for you to be able to log into assigner.com. You still will need to complete your match reports in RidgeStar so that we can pay you for your EA games. But when you do your match reports, when you're the center referee, you can put zeros in for the misconducts because you'll be entering your misconducts on the platforms that the Elite Academy is providing you. Please verify with your crew 3 days prior to the game to make sure everybody remembers they have a game that coming weekend, and making the arrangements to meet at the fields. And then make sure that you've read the Elite Academy League referee guidance. Again, you can find that underneath the information tab under documents. And maybe you even want to print that out and have that with you in case you run into issues on game day. Okay, like I said, polls I didn't get to have work tonight. So for the Elite Academy, the home teams must provide an athletic trainer certified or a healthcare professional. I know all of us like it when we have those individuals at our games because we're able to allow them to do concussion clearance. For EA games, you must be at the field 60 minutes prior to kickoff. So if you're not willing to be at the field 60 minutes prior to kickoff for your first game, these aren't the games for you to sign up for. You'll be using another platform called Mod 11, and it's used for your rosters for check-in, match, and your match reporting after the game. You will get an email from Mod 11 when the assigners assign you to the game in assigner.com. Club staff will have a QR code so that you can access the game information on your own personal phone. Can someone tell me what the 3 clubs that Northwest soccer officials have that have EA teams? I have MRFC and Liverpool and Valencia is the 3 clubs that we assign for EA off of NSO. Okay, so here's this is a very nice graph that you'll find in the referee guidance document for EA in regards to the expectations of managing time. I think this is a concept that EA wants to make sure that we as officials are doing a good job of managing the time for the games. So here's a little outline for you. This does also cover your halftime durations. You'll see here that for U11, U12, it's 10 minutes. And for U14 and U15, it's 15 minutes. Can someone tell me what the halftime is for a RCL game?
Um,
5 minutes, perfect. And when we don't stick to 5 minutes, we start to get our fields behind schedule. So it's important we know the half times. EA has a policy in regards to what they call the ban term policy. For those of you that have been officiating high school, you will find this to be very similar to our harassment discriminatory policy. So here they are having a 0 tolerance around discrimination or harassment. If a referee hears one of the terms that is listed, and I'll show you it in the table in a minute towards a player or staff, they will be removed immediately. And then the incident must be reported within the Mod 11 match notes section following the match. Can somebody tell me that if, I'll ask the question later. And then this same principle does apply to spectators, and sanctions can be taken against the team representative of if we have a issue with a spectator, who is the individual that receives the misconduct. Uh-oh, is everyone stumped?
Head coach.
The coach, yep. So here are some of the ban terms that we have unfortunately heard on our pitches. But if these are heard, this is where we as an official must take action. If you have a player use one of these terms towards an opponent, what would be the appropriate action that you would take? Correct, it's a send-off. So not only would it be a send-off, but then you also would need to explain to the coaches what occurred. So here's the policy of action that we take. If any player reports to a referee crew that one of the terms above or any team deemed in the direction of the above list has been said, but the referee hasn't heard it, then at that point, we do blow the whistle to pause the match. We direct both teams to go to their technical areas. We bring both coaches to the middle of the field, discuss what was reported, and then both coaches return to their teams to determine the situation. And then match may restart upon the agreement of both teams. If for whatever reason, based on what was said, both teams are not comfortable with restarting, the match will be finalized at the respective time in which the incident occurred, and you'll report that in Mod 11 as a disciplinary issue to prompt you to complete the appropriate paperwork. Any questions about this ban term policy? So I think I know there's a couple of questions in regards to what was on the list or not list. Again, these are the banned terms. It's not exhaustive, but anything that is found to be offensive, discriminatory, or harassing would be something that I would use for this process. Okay, hearing no questions on that, I think I hit any other questions in the chat.
There was
here-
one on the BITCH. Is that on the list?
And it is not explicitly on the list, but I think I would find that to be an inappropriate term for the pitch.
So that's we're considering that a red card offense.
Yep.
Okay. And has this list, non-exhaustive list, been shared with the EA coaches, parents, players, and then similarly for high school, is this the same list and has it been shared? Because I think it'd be great if we set folks up for success on that side as well, right?
So, you know, I think we as officials always hope that the information that leagues are providing us is what's also being provided to their coaches, players, and spectators. Based on the league's communications to the officials, we have to presume that those types of terms have that this information has been shared with them appropriately.
Richard, I think there was a question in the chat about some mechanics of if the AR heard the offensive language and the steps and process to go through.
Right. So I think we would, thank you, Craig. If the AR hears something, they need to take action as if the referee heard it. And they should follow the mechanics that the center referee provided them during their pregame of being able to get the center referee's attention. So then that way that could appropriate action could be taken. If it's occurring during the run of play, I think we all know sometimes that's going to be hard to get the center referee's attention, but definitely at the next stoppage, we should use appropriate mechanics to get the center referee's attention. Our center referee should be checking in with our whole crew on each stoppage of play, so that way they would be able to then follow up with the AR to find out what information they had so they could take action. Okay. Any other questions, comments on the ban term policy?
Richard,
Yes.
is there any concern that about taking action based on a statement made by two players or by one player against another in a sort of match where they might be less than truthful?
So Nick, are you talking about that being reported to a referee
Yes.
and or the referee hearing it?
No, not about any referee or crew member hearing it, but about it being reported to you that somebody on the other team said something on the banned term list.
Yep. So, with the being reported to us as the crew, there's no disciplinary action that we're going to take against a player in regards to issuing a misconduct. We're just going to follow these 4 steps to go through the process of having the teams report to the technical areas, letting the coaches know what was reported to you as an official, and having the coaches return back to the teams and let them know what has occurred and that it's inappropriate for the pitch. And then based on the coaches saying, yep, we want to continue to play the match, then we would continue to play the match. Does that help, Nick?
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yep. Nope, it's a good question. Okay. Here's our EA match duration. Again, pretty much follows the most youth games, except for you'll notice here again that U14 is going to play 2 40-minute halves and U16 is playing 2 45-minute halves. Each of these do have, again, the spelled out of 10-minute half times for U11 through U13 and 15-minute half times for U14 through U19. Okay, when things can't get any more hard to manage, let's talk about substitutions. For EA, they will be providing you substitution passes, so that way you know which players have been subbed on. When substitutions occur during halftime, they don't need to provide you a substitution pass because it really gets down to how many subs can occur per half. Here are our normal times in which you have substitution opportunities. For U13 through, so U11 and U12, luckily they're keeping that nice and simple, and it's free substitution at the referee's discretion. And now for the fun. For U13 through U19, there will only be 7 subs per half, and they can only occur over 3 moments. And so if you remember, our moments was on the previous slide: throw-ins, goal kicks, corner kicks, after a goal, stoppage for misconduct. So each team has the ability to make their 7 substitutions over 3 different opportunities to sub. Any questions about EA substitution expectations?
Is that 3 moments per half or per game?
Per half. Okay. Head injury substitution policy. So I think you're going to find this consistent with all the other head injury substitutions that we deal with in all of our clubs when you have limited subs. Anytime you have a player that has to be evaluated for a head injury, they are allowed to put a player on the field while that player is being cleared by a healthcare professional. And if that player is cleared by a healthcare professional and wants to come back into the game, then they can replace the player who subbed on for them without it counting against their substitution. But if they do not, if the player gets cleared and that player subs a different player off the field, they have now used one of their substitution opportunities, and that counts as a sub for the player who went on for the injured player. I see Isaac's got his hand raised.
So what if they don't have extra subs? Any extra players to sub in?
Yes. So if they do not have any subs left, I believe they do not get to put a player on the field. That was my reading of the rules. Unless someone has seen something different.
Which league are we saying?
EA. And it's pretty much all the leagues to my knowledge, Ryan, or
No.
do you know differently?
ECNL, you can still sub a player who's already been on the field.
Okay.
Yep. I'm not sure about EA.
Yeah, I believe if they actually, in reading that second bullet, a player who has already subbed off can come in for a temporary substitution, but then that player who had the head injury would have to come back on for that player that subbed them. So that is in that second bullet there. Okay, so in summary, a head injury substitution may be made regardless of the number of substitutes or moments that have been used. There's your answer, Isaac. All substitutes have been used. The head injury substitute can be a player who has previously been substituted. Each team is permitted an unlimited amount of head injury substitutions. So here they give you the authority to delay or postpone a match. If a situation as an official, you feel you need to stop the match, you need to get approval from both coaches. If both coaches don't agree with postponing the match, then you need to reach out to the assigner so that way you can get direction. Missing referee crew members on match day. So one, this should never happen because all of us should be at the field 60 minutes prior to the game. If we're not at the field 60 minutes prior to the game, the referee, if they're unable to get a hold of the rest of their crew, or if the ARs are unable to get a hold of their referee, you should be calling your assigner for assistance. So that way your assigner can be finding another person to replace the individual who has gone missing. But for whatever reason, if we are unable to locate an individual to be able to fill in for that match, you will have one, and you have one AR missing, then you would have a referee, an AR1, and then a club provided AR2. If both ARs are missing, then you just would play with a referee. So again, any injury should be for any officials or players should be left to the qualified medical professionals to manage, since they are required to have them on site. And you should report all injuries in Mod 11 when you do your match reporting. Match delays due to spectators or outside interference must be reported by the referee. And if you feel that your personal safety is compromised, you should be contacting 911. And then again, make sure that you have put any notes in Mod 11 in regards to any issues that would arise in which you feel that it was unsafe for you as the crew. Here's the payment for these games. So they are adequately compensating us to make sure that we're there in plenty of time to officiate the game, utilize their technology to do the player check-ins, as well as the match reporting. Any questions about EA before we move on to ECNL and RL?
Richard, I have a question regarding the club provided AR2 when there is a shortage on the crew. Are they allowed to call things outside of direct throw in and goal direction of play calls?
I
Can they
think
call off?
Yeah, I think that they were limited to the direction of throw-ins. But that is in the guidance.
Okay.
Again, that's why I think it's so important that if your crew is not at the field 60 minutes before and or at least in contact, letting them know they're stuck in traffic, etc., I'd be reaching out to the assigner so that way we can have a full crew of referees.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I picked this statement up of every game played in the ECNL impacts competition standings and postseason qualifications in some way. There are no friendly games or meaningless games. I think sometimes as referees, as we slog through our day of 3 to 4 to 5 games, we lose sight that some of our elite league games like ECNL and RL, EA, etc. This is partly why these games pay more, and you probably should be doing less in a day to make sure that we're appropriately servicing the game at the level that they want from us. So with the new season, of course, we're going to have some new opportunities here. Here, we're also they've moved to a digital platform. This replaces the use of paper match reports and physical pass cards. Team managers will start the process upon player check-in using their phone. Following the check-in with both team rosters, the app provides the opportunity for the referee to be able to scan a QR code so that then the referee will be able to handle all additional digital tasks on their own phone. In the event that there is one or more red cards, there will be a requirement to complete an incident report through the app. What I did like about ECNL, if I've actually gone in and loaded these 3 documents into Ridgestar, but when I click on, hopefully it'll work here. They actually have screenshots and we'll walk you through the match roster creation. So that way, prior to getting there, you'll be able to see what steps you'll need to take to check players in. That's actually on how to add a person to the roster if they're missing. Here's the directions on how to check the players in for each of the teams. And then finally, after the game, how to be able to go in and do the reporting of the scores. So again, here you'll need to follow these steps to complete your player check-in and then post-game information. Again, just like with EA, we are assigning these games off of Ridgestar, so you'll need to complete your Ridgestar match reports as well. But since you'll be putting your misconducts into the ECNL application, you can put zeros in for your misconducts on Ridgestar, so you don't have to complete the misconduct reports. Here again is the game lengths. As you can see, we're already starting to see differences between these. U16 plays 40-minute halves where EA plays 45-minute halves. So this is why it's important that you know the length of your games depending upon what league you are officiating for. And remember, these leagues, we always are wanting to provide the appropriate stoppage time in their games. It's not like our tournament games where we have a running clock. This is where games are scheduled 2 hours apart. where theoretically you only need about an hour, an hour and 45 minutes to complete the game. So you have an extra 15 minutes for stoppage time for like a U19 game for ECNL or EA. Substitution check-ins and pass card handling. Each coach on the bench must have an ECNL pass card that's verified during the check-in process. U13 through U19, again, they have 7 substitutions that will be allowed per half, and the players may not re-enter in the same half. Again, same concussion protocol does exist here. Unfortunately, ECNL is not providing us with substitution passes like EA does. So you're probably going to want to have AR1 writing down which players are coming off the field. So that way you know when you've reached your 7 and you're making sure that none of those 7 players that have came off the field are coming back onto the field in the same half. For ECNL, in their rules, they say you must be there 30 minutes before game time. And again, the ECNL guidelines are on the website. Any questions about ECNL? Okay. We'll get into school games. Well, luckily, school really hasn't created a whole bunch of new rules or processes around check-ins or substitution. So this will go a little bit faster for us. It is, the coach's responsibility to make sure our players are legally equipped. The head coach does get the first caution. If not, I really hope that none of us are giving coaches cautions for illegally equipped players, because that's as much on us as it is them for not catching it prior to the game starting. There is a 2-page document on the WOA Central Hub that goes into more about players' equipment and the high school rules. Just want to remind everybody the consequences around the misconducts. If it is a second caution, that will result in the player sitting for the rest of that game. If it's violent conduct, the suspension is 20% of the games played, unless they've changed that. I can't remember. I think I saw Brian on here, if he may know the answer to that one. Serious foul play is a 1-game suspension. And then our home teams are wearing the dark colors as opposed to the away teams are wearing white now. So some of the emphasis again around sportsmanship. This is an extension of the classroom, and we need to be providing an atmosphere that is conducive to a classroom. We do have the harassment and discrimination policy, like we discussed, generally the same as in EA. And then we do have the WIAA sportsmanship survey, and then making sure that we have consistency in our games. So this is kind of an overview of the code of conduct that has been shared with all the participants in our school games. I think you'll see here that a theme through here will be that they accept the decisions of contest officials and avoid public criticism. I wish everybody could follow this, but it is something that's been spelled out for them. It's important that when we get done with our games, that we're shaking the hands of the coaches and the teams before we leave the contest. And let's not be arguing with participants and the coaches when we are enforcing the rules. And again, you'll see here participants, they're supposed to accept the decisions of our game officials, as well as our spectators, wanting them to refrain from making negative comments about the officials, coaches, or the participants. And administration is there to be of assistance for us when we do have issues on the pitch with any of the previous participants that we talked about. So just like the Elite Academy policy, again, any type of comments that are racial, ethnicity, gender, identity, expression, disability, religion, age, etc., that someone on the field is offended by, we need to take action on. When we take action on it because we hear it, we need to make sure that we provide the appropriate misconduct, often which is going to be a red card, so that that participant is removed from the match. If we don't hear it, one of the officials does not hear it, then we do need to still stop the game. We need to talk with the coaches and the captains. So in Elite Academy, we only deal with the coaches. In high school, we deal with both the coaches and the captains and let them know what has been reported to us and or what we heard. Tell them that it will not be tolerated. They need to go back to their teams, and their teams then need to inform the teams of what happened and that it will not continue is the expectation, and then we can restart the game. This is an old diagram, I believe, and so the part that has changed last year was that we no longer decide whether or not to terminate the game. It is the responsibility of the game manager. And so we will continue through this process every time it occurs during a game until the game management would say, you know what, we're going to end this match now at this point during one of the times that you have an incident. Any question about the discriminatory behavior policy?
Yeah, real quick. So just to clarify, if you hear it or see it and you act on it, you don't have to send everybody to the bench.
You still send everybody to the bench, Ruben.
Okay, you still do. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. You go through the bench process, whether the officials hear it or not. The only difference between the officials hearing it or not hearing it is that when officials hear it, we apply the appropriate misconduct.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to kind of go through these next ones because we already hit on it. And I know that I want to thank everybody who does the high school games. We have had very limited issues, if I'm correct in saying that, Ryan, in regards to how we are administering it. And for the most part have had cooperation from the school officials post-incident, and or Ryan's doing a great job of educating them on inappropriate behavior on the pitch. Anything you want to add, Ryan?
Yep, no complaints either direction.
And I think, you know, for those of us that have had to unfortunately go down this process, usually after it happening once, it pretty much ends the behavior on the field. Again, after each of your games, you're going to get an email to complete your sportsmanship survey. You get to give them anywhere from a 1 to a 5. We're looking at mostly 1s and 5s from an assigner perspective. If you're given 5s, I'm hoping that they're bringing you dinner and or have snacks for you in the locker room. So it's kind of above and beyond just being nice to you. So we encourage you to complete that during the season. It's useful for us because when we have an issue with a particular venue and or coach, And we have documentation from different officials that that behavior was witnessed, then it helps the WOA and the schools to take action sooner. So, you know, most all of our decisions that we make on the pitch that are controversial are around handling or not handling, offside, contact in the numbers with the shoulder, something in the back, etc. And then angles in and out of play and offsides. What I think is important, and I know Ryan Witten met with the MPSL coaches this evening. Their biggest feedback was around however you're officiating the game, that it's consistent on how you've set that bar, and that it's consistent for both teams. So sometimes teams in the past have perceived that maybe handling called against them was at a different bar than handling called against their opponent. So let's make sure that when we've set our bar for handling, we're calling it the same for both teams. Anything else, Ryan, from the coaches meeting, at least with MPSL, that you wanted to add or share?
No, just so we talked about the the technical area, like just manage that and keep them within their box. And yeah, that was about all they said.
And so I think that's another great example of some of the emphasis that are occurring in our sport. I know for those of you that are officiating college, that is a point of emphasis with them, with college games in regards to keeping the players and the coaching staff in their technical areas. Even to the point where if they're not painted on the field, we may want to put cones up so that way they know where area they need to stay within. But I think we need to make sure we're bringing that emphasis into our games at the high school as well as the youth levels. We know that when coaches seem to get out of their technical areas, they seem to become louder and maybe more opinionated. And when we do a good job of being proactive, especially when we have those technical areas painted on our pitches, which as we have more and more turf fields, we seem to have more and more painted technical areas. Let's use that to our advantage. And when we can be having a conversation that they're upset about a call you made, and you're reminding them that they need to stay in their technical area, the conversation seems to end quicker because they now realize they weren't following the laws of the game. Misconduct's just a piece of advice here. It generally you should be giving a second caution for something that was worse than the first caution. So think about that as you are about to caution a player for a second time. Are they doing something worse than they did the first time? And make sure that when you're completing your misconduct reports, you're covering the who, what, when, where, and how. That way, anybody who's reviewing that, they're able to have the information that's needed to be able to uphold the misconduct report that you provided. And so with that, any questions about high school rules? I did include Ryan's number here. If you give a red card in your high school match, you need to be reaching out to him to let him know that you've provided that. And then you need to be getting your report in when you get home. We prefer not to wait till the next day. We often have the school officials reaching out to Ryan the next morning if they can't get the report, because they're trying to decide in regards to how they may suspend the player for the misconduct.
Yeah, and it just must be filed the same day. You cannot wait. Just 6 a.m. I start getting phone calls. And then there was 2 questions, Richard, that showed up in the chat. One was about the size of the technical area, and one's about enforcing it. So
Yeah, so your technical area, if you look in IFAB, I believe starts about 10 yards from the halfway line, and I think is about 10 yards up from the top of the penalty area.
Yep.
And so if you don't have something painted, that's a good way to explain it to the coaches in regards to the area in which they should be in, and it's usually about a yard off of the touch line. Again, the coach going up to the touch line to provide tactical information to their players is completely appropriate, but you don't need all 5 coaches at the touch line providing technical advice to their players. Did I get the questions then, Ryan?
Well, there was one other one just about enforcing teams to be on the same side. And I actually don't think we can enforce it. We've encouraged it. But I did tell them tonight that, we will still expect them to have a technical area. It's not from the 18 to the 18. It will still be applied. They can just pick a side that they want to use.
Okay. I know Dave Agostavo was on the call earlier. For those of you who don't know Dave does the assigning for the high school north of us. I think a lot of you know Taylor Vance. I'm not sure if he's on the call tonight either, but he does the assigning in the Pierce County area. And I bring this up because I know that many of us may not work in the same county or same area in which we live. And I know most of us do our weekend games probably closer to home, whereas you may find it a lot easier to do high school or school matches closer to where you work. And so if you work somewhere north of Starfire, and want to do school games, Dave Agostavo's the assigner up there, and I can help you get connected with him and be able to get you to games up there. Any of you who are down south in the Pierce County area working and maybe want to do school games, I'm happy to connect you with Taylor to be able to pick up games down that way. I think the important part of this is that there's a lot of school games that we have to get covered, and we always don't have enough referees every night to get them covered. And so we want to make it as easy as possible and convenient for you in regards to your schedule and location, instead of you trying to fight the Puget Sound traffic to get to an area that may be difficult during rush hour. And then I don't know, Dave, if you had any other things you would add to our comments in regards to high school officiating that you're emphasizing north of us this year.
No, I think your info is really good. You go over the rules really well. The idea of high school there's a lot of intensity. It's electric environment, bring a great attitude. Unlike all the other stuff we do, you've got 4 different age brackets put together, and that is unlike everything else we have. So it's a lot. I think it's the most challenging stuff that we have, and we appreciate all the folks that get involved in doing it. I appreciate you having this tonight, Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Okay, many of you have heard me talk about these concepts in regards to the roles that we serve as officials on the pitch. We're not only there to officiate the laws of the game, but we're there as the CEO of the match, making sure we get started on time, we get ended on time, and we keep things moving along. We have customers. Many of them are paying customers. There's our parents on our youth games that are paying lots of money for their kids to be able to play, which is how we get paid to officiate the matches. So we need to bring a professional product so that way they feel they're getting their money's worth. We have clients, we have the schools, we have the soccer clubs that have hired us to officiate their matches, and they have an expectation that we'll do that in a professional manner, and enforce the laws of the game for them. I know some of us are more extroverted than others, and so sometimes some of us may need to put on a performance when we're officiating and be outside of our comfort zone, so that way we can sell the product that we're providing on the pitch, and everyone has a good experience. And maybe first of all, we're the safety officer. It's our job to enforce the laws of the game, so we protect the players on the pitch, and so that way all 22 players and substitutions are able to walk away from the game and not being hurt. So game time management is important. As we all know, the clubs are trying to pack these games in as tight as possible. So we need to make sure that we're starting on time. If we show up to a game and I'm AR2 and I don't see the rest of my crew, but I see the teams, I need to go get those teams checked in, so that way our game gets started on time, even though the center referee may not be there. We need to make sure that we're starting that second half on time, and that we're following the halftime period based on the league. Tonight we shared a couple of those non 5-minute half times that the leagues have. But if you didn't see a league up here with a specified halftime, then it's 5 minutes long. We may need to shorten halves because teams aren't getting on the field in time, even though we've done everything we need to do to get them checked in and started on time. That's a very good tool that you can use to hopefully get the teams out there on the pitch, so that you don't have to shorten halves. And then make sure that when you're selecting games, it's always a lot easier to stay on the same field. So that way, if you do have an injury that gets your game behind, you're not affecting another field and another crew of being able to get their games on time. And around personal responsibility, how we show up to the game and our appearance, and how we wear our uniforms, making sure we have those referee socks, our referee shorts, and then tucking in our uniforms helps to show that we're there and serious about the job that we're about to do, and really plays into setting for the professionalism of how we're going to officiate that match. And then when we have our fitness and able to keep up with the players, stay within our 10 to 15 yards from play, and get up and down the field, is going to help in your games being go a lot smoother. Make sure you have your schedule for high school. Make those blocks keep them up to date, so that way I'm not reaching out when you're not available. And then over the season, this is an opportunity where a lot of refs get a chance to grow. We have a lot of games coming up in the next 3 to 4 months. And although over the summer, you may not have been able to get on some of the higher level games that you wanted, you probably will get those opportunities this fall as we have less referees and more games. And so don't be afraid if you feel like you're ready for a U17 AR and can't self-assign to it, make that request. And you may get that opportunity when there's not other referees with more experience available. For those on here that are youth referees, generally you're going to be able to AR up to the players being the same age you are. And as a center referee, generally you're going to be able to be in the center for any games where the players are 2 years younger than you. Here's some great resources to be able to get continued education and learn other perspectives in regards to officiating through videos. And those links are also under the What's New, I believe, on the Ridgestar website. So, people always talk about, what's kind of the path for referees. Maybe I want to do this more than just a weekend gig, or maybe I want to advance so I can have a higher ranking. So we always encourage people to do that through fitness test. That does increase your ranking on the website, as well as becoming an advanced referee. State Cups will be here before we know it. Rec Cups starts in December for Washington Youth Soccer, and the Boys High School State Cup for WPL is in November. And then this coming weekend is really the end of our tournament season. But Pac Northwest Winter Classic will be just around the corner before you know it in January. Here again is the steps of being a referee. For those of you want to become referee advanced, generally you just need to be 16 years old. You can then complete the online class, and then there's a Zoom meeting class that they put on about once a quarter. And then for those that want to continue their advancement, there is the regional referee. You do have to be 18 to become regional referee, but you should be working towards that prior to that age if you do have that aspiration as a youth referee. And then national referees, that next step. So in closing tonight, I just want to remind us we're all about to start 3.5 months of games, and you need to pace yourself. But as I said before, challenge yourself and seize opportunities. If you do need help, reach out to your signers. They are great resources in regards to the games and the leagues that you're officiating, and can help you maneuver any of those processes. Please don't get hurt. This is a marathon and not a sprint. And so don't feel bad that if you have 3 games on a Saturday and the assigner reaches out to do a 4th, if you have a nagging injury, just say, hey, I really need to not aggravate my injury further. I'm going to pass. Or if you're feeling up to it, then take that extra game. But hurt referees don't help us in the overall coverage of our games over these next few months. And then don't hesitate. We're always looking for referees. There's lots of new referee clinics right now. So if you know somebody who you think would make a good referee or may be interested, encourage them to go and get signed up to become a referee. And with that, this is my last question slide, and I'll let anybody ask any question they want.
Richard, can you reiterate the rules for high school on extra time? How much time, and is the golden goal, and the differences between King County, Pierce County on who does golden goal and who doesn't, etc.?
Oh boy. So I'm gonna call a friend, and Ryan and maybe even Dave can help me. I think only Kinko has the extra time now, which is going to be Liberty Hazen, and then the 2A group that's made up out of Highline School District. Is that right, Ryan?
I'm gonna phone a friend to Dave to make sure on Kinko. I don't think we are anymore, right, Dave? Or are we still doing the 2-5s?
So I know Wesco does 2-5s golden goal for overtime. I think Kinko does too. I'll find out Thursday night from Kinko.
Okay, yeah, there was questions about that from a couple of the coaches. So we will send an email out on Kinko, but all of our other games end in regulation. And then for Kinko, we will send a reminder out. But if we do overtime, it will be 2-5s. And it was never golden goal before.
No, it was last year.
They switched to golden goal last year.
They switched to golden goal last year.
Yeah, you're right. Last year they switched to golden goal. Sorry. They tend to change minds all the time.
Yeah, 2 years ago, 2 years ago it was golden goal only in postseason and no golden goal in regular season. Then last year they switched to golden goal the whole season. So I just wanted to clarify to make sure there's no more changes this year.
Yeah, we don't need to be heroes here. There's just if they have overtime, it's 2-5s golden goal. There aren't any other options after that.
Okay.
So it's like Yeah, and we'll get it out there for you.
Yeah, and
Yeah, we'll send something out.
yeah, my best practice is always going up to the coaches, no matter what I'm doing, actually, high school or otherwise, say, what are we playing today? Find out, and then you're not going to be surprised.
I would say the other league that has something different is the small schools, and they go straight to penalty kicks, and that would be Auburn Adventist, and I think is the only one in our area.
Okay.
And I will send something out on that as well to make sure that that is still going to happen this year.
Any other questions?
Richard, thank you very much, and thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, everyone, I appreciate you spending an extra 24 minutes tonight on the league rules. I hope that all of you seize the opportunities to get to try all the different leagues over the next few months, so you can see how all the rules work out. But again, I appreciate all of you. You are what makes soccer successful in the Puget Sound area, and without you, soccer games wouldn't occur. So I wish you all the best in the coming season, and I hope to see you all on the pitch soon. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.